Hey guys, I had a student turn in their week 6 stuff, and I'll show it to you really quick. I'll just let this loop while we talk about it. So the goal was Luma mats, alpha mats, and masking were the big three things that we talked about this week. And the notes I sent back to her were specifically I wanted you guys to pick apart a logo and mask it out and use it. I think I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like she recreated these from scratch, which is totally fine in the real world. This week it was kind of wanted to see more use of the masking tool, but the criticism I sent back, if we freeze this here, you can see that she used an alpha mat here when this slides up. But it looks like she's just used an alpha mat that's a straight line. Like if I do a new solid, I can kind of show you where I think that line is about. Whoops. Oh my gosh. Hide this. My computer hates me right now. Okay, so let's zoom in. We'll find the spot where this... Right there. So I think this alphabet is about here, right? So it's just a straight line across. And she was asking, well, how would I use these layers in an like to do an alpha mat with them? How would that work? The other thing that we talked about was, again, here, you can see it's another vertical alpha mat instead of using the circle there to hide it. So let's recreate this really quick. I'll probably just use text because I don't have the graphics that she used. So let's make these rings really quick. I'm just going to hide this layer, and we're just going to do, we'll make those rings really fast. So a new shape layer with an ellipse, with a stroke. We'll make it yay big, and I'm just going to pick random colors because I don't really know. This one's going to be red, sure. And we'll give it a little bit bigger stroke here. Make this ring a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks good. Got one. I'm just going to duplicate it, move it down, change the color to blue. Oops, that's my top one. Oh well, that still works. Duplicate this one. Bring it up here. I guess I can actually use the actual colors. Why not? Okay, so this one's yellow. So I'm just going to eyedrop onto her yellow that she already has. Click this one to blue. I'll eyedrop onto the blue that she's got. Grab the red one. This is actually black. I'm going to duplicate that. Oops. I'm going to duplicate that. Okay, let me duplicate you, please. Duplicate that. I'm not being very exact and precise with where I place these. If I was going to do this as a real project, I probably would be, but duplicate you, bring you back up, and make you red. Okay, so that's all well and good. So let's talk about using these in a track mat form, right? I have my, let me make a background for this so I don't get annoyed. Might as well make it look pretty, right? Man, my mouse today is really rough. I'm going to throw a ramp on this. Let's do like a little yellow action. Oops. Sorry, I'm going through this rather quick because by now we should all know how to kind of do this. Yoink. And I'm going to make this not nearly as dark. Okay, so we've got like a little background for this guy. Let me lock that down. And here's our rings, right? So let's say we have some text in here. And man, everything is, I've recently been moving from project to project with different windows. Oops. And so everything is always in a different place. And it's driving me up the wall. Oh, there's my character. I need to make this a lot bigger. Okay, so let's say we have Olympics, right? Actually, let's just do black so it's easier to see. And Middle bold. Sure. Okay. So let's say this is the text that we want to have animate up. So we've got these down here, and we want this to come up from behind it. But instead of using a linear one, how do we use an alpha mat that conforms to the shape of this? What I would do is I would grab all these layers, pre-compose this as Olympic rings. Okay, so we got those. Now we just have one layer that's all the rings, right? I would duplicate that, right? And actually what I would do is, okay, so the problem is if we duplicate this, we would need to fill this all out, right? We would need to fill these with something. Any color, really. It doesn't really matter. And this is going to be kind of hard to explain. If we do that in here, though, and use that as our track mat layer, it's going to affect these. So what we really need to do is create two different compositions, or pre-comps. So I'm going to duplicate all of these, so we have two separate pre-compositions. So I'm going to pre-compose this as ring mat. I'm going to pre-compose this as Olympic rings, because I don't want the colors and stuff like that to change in here. I do want it to change here, though. So if I go into here, now we can just give these a fill. Doesn't really matter the color because it's going to hide it. We're just using this as the outline, right? So you just want to fill all these shapes in with something. Fill. Okay, so now if we look at our thing, so now these are completely filled, and we can use this now as a shape for our track mat, right? So when we go back, we've got this on top. If I hide it, we still have our rings behind it. Looks good. So now I put that on top of the Olympics, and I go to my toggle switches so I can see my alpha mat. Oops. And I would select alpha inverted mat. So now it hides that because we just use it as a reference, right? It always references the mat, the layer above it for the mat. So now when I bring Olympics down, you can see that it hides it behind those layers, right? Well, if you had it down here and you still want to hide all this, that's easy to add, right? We can just go into here, and we can create another one down here that's below those three top pieces, right? So once it gets below, here we have a line, so everything down here gets hidden. But now you have these nice ridges where you can still see it until it goes under that, right? So if I grab Olympics, it's always hidden up right until above there. So you can see there, if I dive into here, why that is, right? There's nothing up here for it to hide. It's only the rings and below the rings. Okay, so that's kind of how that works with that. And it's the same way then with the NBC logo. We'll go back to this and look at it. Right, so that would fix this issue. And the nice thing is that let's say both layers are moving, right? The nice part is I can parent this mat to my Olympic rings. So if I have my rings moving, my mat goes with it, right? So so there was a scale move on that. So I think, what did it do? Was it scaling down? It draws it, scales it down while that comes up. Okay, so that would be the equivalent of, let's make sure that my anchor point's good. So let's say it scales from this down to, this. And we're going to do a position move too. I'm going to hit U to bring up everything I've keyframed. And I want my position to end down lower, right? So I'll easy ease these. Okay, so here's my fake move. And from there, I want Olympics to come up, right? So yeah, it looks like it scales and moves up. So I'll start it down here. And I'll hit P, and then I'll hit Shift S to bring up position and scale. Keyframe there, keyframe here. Start it, finish it up here. And I want it to be scaled down when it starts, so I'll have it scaled down real low, and I'll bring it down here. Okay, we'll see what that looks like. Right, so that's kind of a similar move. And it still hides it behind those layers, which looks real nice. Cool. So the same thing then with a layer coming up to from the side of these. The nice thing is that we can create another mat for if we have text on the side, like let's say we want something to slide to the right of it. I don't have the logo, so I'll just type NBC. So I want this to come from the side. I'll do it kind of big so it fills up a lot of this. So let's say I wanted this to slide in, and I want essentially a shape that matches this, so you won't see it when it's behind the rings. So the way we would do that is we have our ring mat from up here, right? But we drew that extra line on it to hide it below. So we kind of need to copy those and do it again. So we can go in here and just copy all these again, but I guess I don't want this guy. So we're going to copy these layers and go back here, paste them in. So we've got a new mat to deal with. The problem, though, is that we've animated these, right? We've animated these ones. So really, we want to copy this guy, but we need to match the properties that they are now. So it's scaled 80%, and we need to match the position. So, so when we paste these guys in, we'll pre-compose them again as NBC mat. We're going to scale them to 80. And I'm just going to hit P on both of these and then copy from the rings down here where the actually is and make sure that these are pasted onto here, so they should line up. Of course they don't. I don't know why. 80%. Oh, because the anchor point's probably different. If I hit UU on the layer, it brings up anything that's ever changed. You can see the anchor point has changed on this one. I need to change it on here as well. So we'll go to anchor point, and I'll just copy this guy here. Okay, now it lines up perfectly. Okay, so now we have a fresh mat that we can work with. So if I go back, I've got it above NBC. Again, I'm going to select, oops, good lord. I'm going to select alpha inverted mat. So now I can do an NBC move where it goes across this way. So on this one, I really don't want to see any of this stuff either, right? That's what I don't want to see. So I can go back into this one, and I can just create a new shape where essentially all this stuff I want to be hidden as well, okay? Again, it doesn't matter what this looks like. Like I have like a stroke and a fill. As long as it's filled with something, it doesn't really matter. So when I go back to this guy, now you can see it's hidden. So this is what it looks like. This is what's covering it up. And so my NBC's behind here, right? So as long as I don't go above this in any weird way, so now NBC can animate out from this side. That's kind of how that works. So I think that that's all the questions from. Oh, what? Oh man, I was getting nervous. I thought that this wasn't recording the whole time. That would really stink. So let me check really quick and make sure that there weren't any other questions on this. Okay, so she did have one question about would trim paths affect these track mats? Trim paths being what's animating these on. And they really don't, because our track mats, they're just kind of the placeholder of what we're hiding. You know, I can go back to my Olympic rings now, and I can animate these however I want. If I grab a trim path here, I can edit this guy and animate this guy on. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do a 40 keyframe move. Right? Just make these look a little prettier. Okay, it's a little slow. Okay, cool. And I'm just going to copy that trim paths, and I'm going to paste it on all the other ones. And now we want to sequence these. And a really easy way to sequence stuff is if we grab all these layers, I can right click, go to Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers, and it'll ask me how much I want to overlap, meaning how much time before the next one starts. Actually, I don't know if that'll work. Because if I do two, like if I do like 3 here, it'll offset it, overlap it by 3, which is not what we want. So how long are these? And it's probably easiest if I just do this by hand. Okay, so I'm going to take these guys, and let me zoom in real close here. I'll bump them over like every 3 keyframes. So I'm just sequencing these guys out. Okay, so here's our ring animation. Okay, so you can have these come in still, and it really has no effect on our main composition. I need to push that movement back really quick. So I'm going to shift that animation down. I'm going to hide our NBC because it's just kind of garbage at this point. Okay, so you can have those come on with trim paths. And if I pause that on here and I show you the mat on it, it's still there, right? There's still my mat. The trim paths really have no effect because I didn't animate those. So they're just kind of frozen there. And as it goes down, it's still in place. So that's kind of creating specific track mats for different shapes and not just using a straight line for a track mat. I hope this helps. Hope this kind of helps answer some of the questions and other ways that you can use track mats.